Good morning, welcome to our service again, because you've been welcomed already. And can you believe that next Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent? It is just going in really, really quickly. Well, you're really welcome wherever you're joining us from, and we're a community of people gathered around a transforming friendship of Jesus. We have found that Jesus just following him is the opportunity of a lifetime, and he begins, as we follow him, he begins to change us from the inside out, just transform us, heal all our brokenness and hurt and pain, and increasingly give us life and health and wholeness. So you're really, really welcome. And we're in week 2 of a series looking at one ingredient in how to live an unhurried life, and that one ingredient is practicing Sabbath rest, a day once a week when you rest. And we looked last week, if you like, at the why of Sabbath rest. And today what I want to do is look at the components of Sabbath rest, the different parts of it, because as I said last week, it's more than simply resting, taking a day off as the world understands it. And I've relied heavily on some really, really good material from Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. It's a really helpful course that a number of our people in our church are actually doing right now, and we will continue to do in the new year. You'll hear more about that. And one of the things I love about the Emotionally Healthy Spirituality guys is they call Sabbath keeping an ancient treasure. What a great phrase. And what we're doing this week, and we did last week, is uncovering this ancient treasure, this ancient gift God has given us for life right now. So in Genesis 2, the start of it, and in Deuteronomy 5, we are told that God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. Now, when you think of holy, don't think religious, as if God made a religious day that we had to observe. Holy literally means separate. So Sabbath was a day separate from the other 6 days, a different kind of a day. God worked on 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested, and we're called to imitate God, to have a day of Sabbath rest once every 7 days. Now, if I'm to be honest, only recently have I begun to seriously think about the Sabbath and try, myself and Debbie, my wife, to try and practice it. I suppose I never really thought about it seriously, and if I did, I probably assumed it was irrelevant for following Jesus, irrelevant for experiencing his kind of life. I didn't have time for it. It was kind of like some Old Testament law that you could ignore, kind of like ritual hand washing, like I said last week. I knew some people did practice it still, but I thought they were being kind of either legalistic or they just liked the ceremony of it. But like we saw last week, Sabbath has nothing to do with rule keeping and everything to do with trusting God. And that's really, really relevant for us who want to follow Jesus as his apprentices. Sabbath requires that we're confident in the care of God for our lives. And in Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, Pete Scazzaro, if I'm pronouncing that properly, he lists 4 principles or 4 components of practicing a biblical Sabbath, which is a 24-hour period once every week. And I found these 4 principles really helpful. So the first principle is to simply stop. Stop. Sabbath literally means stop. Stop from all your working, from all your doing, from your paid and unpaid work, like laundry would be unpaid work. And to stop like that is to resist the world's value system of doing more, of acquiring more, of always being busy. So you're to simply stop from paid and unpaid work. And you know what's funny? But as I look back at my life and seeing other people's experiences of life, we always kind of think the next stage in life we'll be able to slow down and stop a little. Like in college, we think we'll be able to slow down once we've finished with studies and exams and the part-time job that keeps us so busy. And then we start working and realize, actually, this is busier. And we think, well, we'll slow down once we're qualified or once we know how to do the job properly. And then we think we'll slow down once we get married. And then we get married and we realize, actually, there's 2 families we have to keep up with and we feel busier. And then maybe kids arrive and you think, well, when the kids are out of nappies, Then life will slow down, only to find the teenage years are even busier, and it just goes on. Like we'll slow down once we get our house, or when we retire, or maybe when we go to heaven. The slowed down stage that we're always looking for never seems to arrive. Life will never allow us to stop unless we turn our attention to Jesus and live in the awareness of His reality. He is on the throne, He is caring for us, and He's caring for the universe. And the universe will keep going, and our life will keep going, even if we stop for one day in 7. You see, Jesus is in charge, not us. Actually, this side of heaven, there's always going to be unfinished things, undone things, one more thing to do. So we just won't get everything done. But God is on His throne, and He's on His throne in our lives. And with that lens to look at life, we can stop. It's still based on trusting God. His power, His presence, His care for us allows us to stop. So stop is the first principle. The second principle that he lists is rest. It says God rested on the 7th day and calls us to do the same. We rest for our thriving. And it's resting, like I said, from paid and unpaid work like laundry. So it means you actually have to plan for a Sabbath. It won't work if you just think, okay, I'm just going to take a day off. Because the laundry will have to get done, or the hoovering, or the shopping will demand that they have to get done. Me and Deb, we've been practicing Sabbath now for a few months. And really early on we learned you have to plan for it. So we try and prepare beforehand. We don't always do it well, but we try and prepare beforehand, sometimes cooking a dinner beforehand, so as that, because cooking can feel like work, and so we have the dinner already prepared for when Sabbath starts. We get the hoovering done, the laundry done, organised on different days, so it doesn't need to get done on that day. And all that takes planning. And to be honest, it's hard work. And if I was to give us a grade, if we were in school, Sabbath school, to figure out how we're doing, I'd say 40%, maybe. But we're learning. So it's stopping, it's resting, and the third principle or component is delight. So the question is, what do we do with all this time we have because we've stopped and we're resting? Well, what we do in Sabbath rest is we give that time to things that delight us, that bring us joy. And you know what? I never ever thought about delight being central to Sabbath. In Genesis 1:31, we see God enjoying or delighting in His creation. He calls it very good. Now the word good, it has a really wide range of meanings, but it includes a sense of joy or enjoyment and delight. So God is, on the 7th day, when He takes His rest, He's delighting in creation. So one of the central parts of Sabbath is delight, enjoyment. Sabbath must include what brings joy and delight. And you know, sometimes we live such busy lives we don't know what brings joy and delight. And it can be different for different people. For example, Debbie loves gardening. It gives her real joy to move plants around, to tidy up the flower beds. She really enjoys that, and sometimes does that as part of her Sabbath. For me, that's torture. I hate gardening. It's never going to be part of my Sabbath. But one thing I really enjoy is, still in the garden, but if it's sunny outside, is to get out the garden chair, fall asleep in the sunshine. I really enjoy it. Actually, I enjoy it so much that sometimes, like in the winter when it's still sunny and not windy, I'll put a coat on, gloves, a hat, and put a blanket around me and fall asleep out in the back garden in the sunshine. I just really enjoy that. It gives me great pleasure. Other things that we do, like going for walks or having nice meals or a lovely glass of wine with friends or a good book or a movie, all that can be delight for you and can be part of Sabbath. So if you want to practice Sabbath, you will need to begin to experiment with what brings you delight, what brings you joy. So we're stopping, we're resting, we're delighting. And the fourth principle is contemplating. The Sabbath is always holy unto the Lord. Exodus 31:15. So contemplating God's love and God's love for us is the central focus to Sabbath. And throughout church history and in the Old Testament, that included worshipping together as God's people, where we meet with our God. So for most people, Sabbath works best on Sundays. And this gathering together is part of delight for us, the mutual delight, God's delight in his gathered family, his joy in his family gathered in his name, and our delight in him and being part of his family and his community. That's what happens in our church services, our church gatherings. And as priests, now in the New Testament, we're all priests of God who are involved in Sabbath. And we get to take part in the preparations for those God meeting his people. That's part of the priest's job and part of Sabbath. So being on teams of volunteers in different areas on Sunday mornings, that's part of Sabbath. You know, when I first heard about people speaking in this way about Sabbath, where it's stop, rest, delight, contemplate, I realized I actually like that idea. It's really, really attractive. It's really something good to have as a weekly rhythm in my life. I really like stop, rest, delight, contemplate. That sounds like much more than just keeping rules, much more than I thought Sabbath was about. So like I said, me and Deb, we've been practicing and experimenting with Sabbath these last few months, and it really has been harder than you would imagine. Just a few practical things. Don't get legalistic over it if you want to begin to practice this. And we all can become legalistic box tickers. Remember, Jesus told us that the Sabbath is to serve man, not man the Sabbath. So there will be times when you will have to work on Sabbath. Jesus gives the example of if one of your sheep falls into the well, for us that's probably not going to happen, but maybe the car has a flat tire and you need to change it. Or suppose the smoke alarm goes off in the house or the apartment, it's going beep, 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 and you kind of think, well, I can't change it because it's Sabbath, even though it's really annoying. Just change the battery. So don't be legalistic about it. And one way you know you've become legalistic about it is that you feel guilty when you don't practice it. You see, it's a gift to you, not an obligation. And then experiment on what works for you. What might you delight in? How to organize your week so you can practice Sabbath. Try gardening for a while, if that's what works. If it doesn't, try something else. And also practically, you really have to plan in advance for it. Historically, the Jews had a preparation day preparing for the Sabbath, so they'd get everything out of the way so they wouldn't have to work on the Sabbath, so they could rest on the Sabbath, so they could delight on the Sabbath. And for you and me, that means organizing when the laundry is done, when you clean the house, when you do whatever has to get done, when you do your shopping, to make sure it's not done on Sabbath. You know, we're told, I think it's in Psalm 19, God's law revives the soul. It brings joy to the heart. Practicing the Sabbath is a central part of this law that revives your soul and my soul, that brings joy to the heart. You see, remember, God is your good Father, and He only wants good for you. That's why He's given us the gift of Sabbath, not a hoop to jump through. It's really for our thriving in life. But the world we live in has us hooked on the adrenaline of busyness. It values busyness, doing the next thing, doing the thing after that. And that means that the reality of the law and Sabbath and that how that can revive your soul isn't always obvious to us. We're kind of like the psalmist who prayed in Psalm 119, verse 18. Open my eyes that I may see the wonderful things in your law. Sabbath is a wonderful thing for our lives. And to quote Dallas Willard again, I did this quote last week. Sabbath serves human life in essential ways. Without it, life cannot be what it should be. That's why it's given in the Ten Commandments, at the heart of the moral law. It's not something we have to do because God has arbitrarily required it of us, a pointless hoop he would have us jump through. Sabbath is his gift to us. Now, we all know we're too busy, living too hurried a life, and fixing that and changing that, whether you're a Christian or not, is a good thing to do. And actually, Christians and non-Christians often try a new app or the latest podcast from a lifestyle guru to get more peace and calm in our lives. Maybe we go to some evening class, a yoga class or something like that. We kind of dismiss this stuff from the Bible. Yeah, Sabbath rest, but that's not going to work for me. I need something that really works. We do kind of do that. And it reminds me of a scene from a TV program years ago called Absolutely Fabulous, about two middle-aged women. And one woman wanted to lose weight, and her daughter told her, well, if you want to lose weight, all you have to do is eat less and exercise more. And then the mother responds to this and says, don't be stupid. If it was that easy, everybody would do it. Now, taking that to Sabbath and rest, and the rest from God. Don't be stupid. If it was that easy, everyone would be doing Sabbath. Maybe God knows what's really good for us and knows how we should live for our enjoyment, for our blessing, for our thriving. So, I've been trying to convince all of us, me included, to adopt and begin to practice Sabbath. But it takes a long time to learn how to incorporate it into our lives. Just like, diets that promise, permanent weight loss, you lose 10 kilos in 3 days and you'll never gain them back. They're just nonsense. There's no shortcut to that. And there's no shortcut to incorporating Sabbath in our lives. It will take time. It will take effort. It will require changing things, experimenting. It will take intentionality. And we have to learn how to practice it. So be patient with yourself and be full of grace towards yourself, but still intentional. Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, they have a great illustration about Sabbath. And a few years ago, before COVID and before Zoom, any of those kind of things, there was a snowstorm in Dublin and everything just shut down. No one could get to work, no one could get to the shops. You just couldn't do anything. At least not anything remotely related to work. So suddenly you had this kind of gift of a day to do whatever you wanted. And you know what loads of people did? They got to the parks, they went to the mountains to play in the snow. Sabbath is like that. A weekly snow day where you have permission to play, permission to be with friends, permission to take a nap. And God gives us a day like that every seventh day to enjoy. And even thinking about that will cause you to think about who God actually is. He gives us a day to do nothing related with work, to do whatever you want, whatever brings joy. Because that's the nature and the character of a loving Father. And He invites you into it. So let's be His apprentices. Let's experiment with this. So can I pray for us? Jesus, I feel like I'm only beginning to get a glimpse of Sabbath. And even as I think about Sabbath, only getting a glimpse of who you are. The God who gives us a day to do whatever we want. A day to just fill with delight and enjoyment. Sabbath is helping me understand you better, Lord, and me. Would you help all of us to take steps towards incorporating Sabbath in our lives? To to make those intentional changes and adjustments to help us to stop, to rest, to delight, and to contemplate. Amen.